We got Christopher incoming. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Fine.
Okay, I'm going to get to this point real quick, but first of all, I got to say the sex thing that you guys have been talking about, the first thing that came to mind was very Orwellian in nature.
Yeah.
Just the fact that they're trying to hold everything from you, make you think about everything that you do, all that.
God's got a spy camera in your bedroom. He's like a colossal pervert.
Well, that's what God is, isn't he? He's Big Brother.
Jesus is a voyeur, and he's watching you all the time. That's what I was taught real early in my life. It's the craziest idea.
And ceiling cat, too.
Yeah, ceiling cat. There you go.
That's exactly why I came to the thought of George Orwell and the Big Brother scenario.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, my question was, a friend of mine, she's kind of a deist with tints of Christianity. Now, she's one step away from this realization that there is no God, or at least in the atheist sense, that there is no proof of this. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that that's really holding her there is the fact that she's petrified of there being no afterlife, of there being nothing after this. She's got this fear that just grips her and keeps her from looking at the scenario logically.
Well, let me just throw out here. What you're describing is what I call a death neurosis. We're all afraid of death. That's a fairly normal thing. You're as sentient human beings that have a consciousness, we are concerned about the end of our life. And there's nothing wrong with that. What happens in death neurosis is somebody is created, there's a heightened fear of that death brought about, oftentimes through religion. I don't know, you didn't mention religion with this woman. Is that the case?
She claims to be a Seventh-day Adventist, but it's very light. She acknowledges that a lot of the stories in the Bible are metaphor. Mm-hmm. They aren't taken literally.
She was raised
human hands made it and all that.
She was raised Seventh-day Adventist? She was raised a Seventh-day Adventist?
Yeah, her father's a minister.
Oh, okay. Fundamentalist churches and Seventh-day Adventists are very fundamentalist, are very big on death, fear of death. You're going to hell and you're going to burn in hell and all that sort of stuff.
Well, the thing is, she doesn't believe in hell.
Oh, no.
As I said, she's mostly a deist with hints of the Christianity.
But what I'm suggesting is she was taught this at the age of 5 to 7 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That you acquire this infection that I call the God virus at 5 to 7 years old, it is preconscious. It's long before what I call the rational immune system is mature enough to evaluate this information. So this information was poured into her head about her going to hell, she's a bad person, original sin. I mean, you name it. There's tons of things that Christians get dumped on when they're 5 to 7 years old, plus or minus a few years there, and it's preconscious. So she's dealing with a neurosis that goes right into the most deepest part of her consciousness and something she was not aware of when she was being taught. And Seventh-day Adventists are pretty vicious about this in many ways. It's a pretty strong fundamentalist principle that they follow there. So what I'm saying is you're probably not going to get her out of it. She may say she's a deist, but...
No, I basically gave her that label because she acknowledges that a lot of the Bible isn't the hand of God.
Until she sits down with somebody with some professional skills around this.
Yeah.
And non-theists don't go to a Christian counselor because unfortunately they will reinforce it. Even inadvertently, they'll still reinforce it. Until she does that, she's probably not going to get over this. It's pretty deeply embedded. If you think about it, you learned your language about that same time. You know, we were learning our language from the time we were 1 or 2 years old up until about 10. And think how deeply language is embedded in you. Now let's say at the age of whatever she is, 30 years old, 40 years old, we say, now we want you to learn Chinese. And we want you to learn Chinese as well as you learned English. It would be almost impossible for her to do. Very few people could do that. Well, that's what you're asking her. You're saying, we want you to unlearn this deeply embedded God virus that you learned at 5 to 7 before you were even aware of it. it's just almost as hard as learning a new language, just unlearning it sometimes.
Or in some
I
cases,
haven't been pushing it on her. I've just been, letting her see some of the clips from shows like this, listening to a little bit of Richard Dawkins, things like that, trying to make her think logically, just step by step. I'm not pushing anything on her. I'm just saying, hey, look at this. This I think you would find interesting.
And that's a good way to do it. The more you push, the more you're likely to give her the wrong, push her back into where you don't want her to go.
Yeah, and going back to the language thing, in some cases it's a little bit like not even just learning another language, but trying to convince somebody that a word that they've been using since they were 3 either means something entirely different from what they think it means, or that it's not actually a word, that it has no meaning, that nobody else has actually used this. It's along those lines. It ties back to something I said before and something I've heard somebody else say, in that religion basically gives you a sickness and then tries to provide you the cure. And in this case, when we're talking about death, they're exploiting something that's going to happen to everybody. And they've invented a sickness called after death. And they're providing a cure for it. And so the people who begin to have problems and doubt or eventually reject their religion, because the rejection of that religion does not provide a cure for this mythical after death, the only way around that is to finally get them to realize that after death doesn't exist, that they were never infected with the disease that they were trying to be given a cure for, as anything other than mental. But
good question, and good luck to you and her.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank you guys for doing what you do. It was actually one of the reasons I became an atheist recently myself. Thanks a lot. Good. Have a great day.
Okay.
Thanks much.